Hinduism in Indonesia is practiced by 1.7% of the total population, and by 83.5% of the population in Bali as of the 2010 census. Hinduism is one of the 6 official religions of Indonesia. In 2010, there were an estimated total of over 4 million Hindus in Indonesia. The PHDI gives an estimate of 18 million. History. The natives of Indonesian archipelago practiced indigenous animism and dynamism, beliefs common to the Austronesian people. Native Indonesians venerated and revered ancestral spirit. They also believed that some spirits may inhabit certain places such as large trees, stones, forests, mountains, or any sacred place. This unseen spiritual entity that has supernatural power is identified by ancient Javanese and Balinese as Hyang, that can mean either divine or ancestral. In modern Indonesian, Hyang tends to be associated with God. Arrival of Hinduism. Hindu influences reached the Indonesian archipelago as early as 1st century. Historical evidence is unclear about the diffusion process of cultural and spiritual ideas from India. Java legends refer to Saka era, traced to 78 AD. Stories from the Mahabharata epic have been traced in Indonesian islands to the 1st century. However, the versions mirror those found in Southeast Indian Peninsula region. The Javanese prose work Tantu Page Laran of the 14th century, which is a collection of ancient tales, arts and crafts of Indonesia, extensively uses Sanskrit words, Indian deity names and religious concepts. Similarly, ancient chandis excavated in Java and western Indonesian islands, as well as ancient inscriptions such as the 8th century Kangal inscription discovered in Indonesia, confirm widespread adoption of Shiva Lingam iconography. His companion goddess Parvati, Ganesha, Vishnu's Brahma, Arjuna, and other Hindu deities by about the middle to late 1st millennium AD. Ancient Chinese records of Fahin on his returned voyage from Ceylon to China in 414 AD mention 2 schools of Hinduism in Java, while Chinese documents from 8th century refer to the Hindu kingdom of King Sanjar as holing, calling it exceedingly wealthy, and that it coexisted peacefully with Buddhist people and Sailendra ruler in Kedu plain of the Java island. The 2 major theories for the arrival of Hinduism in Indonesia include that South Indian sea traders brought Hinduism with them, and second being that Indonesian royalty welcomed Indian religions and culture, and it is they who first adopted these spiritual ideas followed by the masses. Indonesian islands adopted both Hindu and Buddhist ideas, fusing them with pre-existing native folk religion and animist beliefs. In the 4th century, the kingdom of Kutai in East Kalimantan, Tarumanagara in West Java, and Holing in Central Java, were among the early Hindu states established in the region. Excavations between 1950 and 2005, particularly at the Sibura and Batujar sites, suggests that Tarumanagara revered deity Vishnu of Hinduism. Ancient Hindu kingdoms of Java built many square temples, named rivers on the island as Gomati and Ganges, and completed major irrigation and infrastructure projects. Several notable ancient Indonesian Hindu kingdoms were Mataram, famous for the construction of one of the world's largest Hindu temple complexes, the Prambanan Temple, followed by Kediri and Singhasari. Hinduism along with Buddhism spread across the archipelago. Numerous sastras and sutras of Hinduism were translated into the Javanese language and expressed in art form. Rishi Agastya, for example, is described as the principal figure in the 11th century Javanese text Agastyapava. The text includes Puranas, and a mixture of ideas from the Samkhya and Vedanta schools of Hinduism. The Hindu-Buddhist ideas reached the peak of their influence in the 14th century. century, the last and largest among the Hindu-Buddhist Javanese empires. Majapahit influenced the Indonesian archipelago. Hinduism in colonial era. Sunni Muslim traders of the Shafi'i fiqh, as well as Sufi Muslim traders from India, Oman and Yemen brought Islam to Indonesia. The earliest known mention of a small Islamic community amidst the Hindus of Indonesia is credited to Marco Polo, about 1297 AD, whom he referred to as a new community of Moorish traders in Perlik. Over 15th and 16th centuries, a Muslim militant campaign led by sultans attacked Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms and various communities in the Indonesian archipelago, with each sultan trying to carve out a region or island for control. Four diverse and contentious Islamic sultanates emerged in North Sumatra, South Sumatra, West and Central Java, and in southern Borneo. These sultanates declared Islam as the state religion and pursued war against each other as well as the Hindus and other non-Muslim infidels. Hindus, Buddhist, Confucian and animist communities in these Indonesian sultanates bought peace by agreeing to pay Jayu tax to the Muslim ruler, while others began adopting Islam to escape the Jayu tax. For example, Jayu was imposed on unbelievers of Islam in Sumatra as a condition for peace by the local sultan. In some regions, Indonesian people continued their old beliefs and adopted a syncretic version of Islam. In other cases, Hindus and Buddhists left and concentrated as communities in islands that they could defend. Hindus of Western Java, for example, moved to Bali and neighboring small islands. While this era of religious conflict and inter-sultanate warfare was unfolding, and new power centers were attempting to consolidate regions under the control, European colonialism arrived. The Indonesian archipelago was soon dominated by the Dutch colonial empire. The Dutch colonial empire helped prevent interreligious conflict, and it slowly began the process of excavating, understanding and preserving Indonesia's ancient Hindu-Buddhist cultural foundations, particularly in Java and western islands of Indonesia. Hinduism in contemporary era. After Indonesia gained its independence from Dutch colonial rule, it officially recognized only monotheistic religions under pressure from political Islam. Further, Indonesia required an individual to have a religion to gain full Indonesian citizenship rights, and officially Indonesia did not recognize Hindus. It considered Hindus as a rank yang belum beragama, and as those who must be converted. In 1952, the Indonesian Ministry of Religion declared Bali and other islands with Hindus as needing a systematic campaign of proselytization to accept Islam. The local government of Bali, shocked by this official national policy, declared itself an autonomous religious area in 1953. The Balinese government also reached out to India and former Dutch colonial officials for diplomatic and human rights support. A series of student and cultural exchange initiatives between Bali and India helped formulate the core principles behind Balinese Hinduism. In particular, the political self-determination movement in Bali in mid-1950s led to a non-violent passive resistance movement in the Joint Petition of 1958, which demanded Indonesian government recognize Hindu Dharma. This joint petition quoted the following Sanskrit mantra from Hindu scriptures: Om Tat Sat Ekam Advitiyam. Translation: Om, thus is the essence of the all-pervading, infinite, undivided One. The petition's focus on the undivided One was to satisfy the constitutional requirement that Indonesian citizens have a monotheistic belief in one God. The petitioners identified Ida Sang Hyang Widi Wasa as the undivided One. In the Balinese language, this term has two meanings: the divine ruler of the universe and the divine absolute cosmic law. This creative phrase met the monotheistic requirement of the Indonesian Ministry of Religion in the former sense, while the latter sense of its meaning preserved the central ideas of Dharma in ancient scripts of Hinduism. In 1959, Indonesian President Sukarno supported the petition and a Hindu Balinese Affairs section was officially launched within the Ministry of Religion. Indonesian politics and religious affairs went through turmoil from 1959 to 1962, with Sukarno dissolving the constituent and weakening the impact of communist movement in Indonesia along with political Islam. Nevertheless, officially identifying the religion as Hinduism was not a legal possibility for Indonesians until 1962, when it became the fifth state-recognized religion. This recognition was initially sought by Balinese religious organizations and granted for the sake of Bali, where the majority were Hindu. Between 1966 and 1980, along with Balinese Hindus, large numbers of Indonesians in eastern Java, as well as parts of South Sulawesi, North Sumatra, Central and South Kalimantan officially declared themselves to be Hindus. They politically organized themselves to press and preserve the rights. The largest of these organizations, Parasada Hindu Dharma Bali, changed its name to PHDI Indonesia in 1986, reflecting subsequent efforts to define Hinduism as a national rather than just a Balinese concern. While Hindus in Bali, with their large majority, developed and freely practiced the religion, in other islands of Indonesia they suffered discrimination and persecution by local officials as these Hindus were considered as those who had left Islam, the majority religion. However, the central government of Indonesia supported the Hindus. In the 1960s, Hinduism was an umbrella also used by Indonesians whose faith was Buddhism and Confucianism, but when neither of these two were officially recognized. Furthermore, Hindu political activists of Indonesia worked to protect people of those faiths under rights they had gained at the Indonesian Ministry of Religion. To gain official acceptance and the rights in a Muslim-dominated country, Hinduism in Indonesia was politically forced to adapt. Currently, Hindu Dharma is one of the 5 officially recognized monotheistic religions in Indonesia. Folk religions and animists with a deep concern for the preservation of the traditional ancestor religions declared the religion to be Hinduism, considering it a more flexible option than Islam in the outer islands. In the early 70s, the Toraja people of Sulawesi were the first to realize this opportunity by seeking shelter for their indigenous ancestor religion under the broad umbrella of Hinduism, followed by the Karo Batak of Sumatra in 1977. In central and southern Kalimantan, a large Hindu movement has grown among the local indigenous Dayak population, which led to a mass declaration of Hinduism on this island in 1980. However, this was different from the Javanese case, in that conversions followed a clear ethnic division. Indigenous Dayak were confronted with a mostly Muslim population of government-sponsored migrants and officials, and deeply resentful at the dispossession of the land and its natural resources, compared to the counterparts among Javanese Hindus. Many Dayak leaders were also more deeply concerned about Balinese efforts to standardize Hindu ritual practice nationally, fearing a decline of their own unique Hindu Kaharingan traditions and renewed external domination. By contrast, most Javanese were slow to consider Hinduism at the time, lacking a distinct organization along ethnic lines and fearing retribution from a locally powerful Islamic organizations like the Nahdlatul Ulama. Several native tribal peoples with beliefs such as Sundanese Sundawiwitan, Torajan Aluk Tadolo, and Batak Malim, with their own unique syncretic faith, have declared themselves as Hindus in order to comply with Indonesian law, while preserving the distinct traditions with differences from mainstream Indonesian Hinduism dominated by the Balinese. These factors and political activity has led to a certain resurgence of Hinduism outside of its Balinese stronghold. General beliefs and practices. The general beliefs and practices of Agama Hindu Dharma are a mixture of ancient traditions and contemporary pressures placed by Indonesian laws that permit only monotheist belief under the national ideology of Pancasila. Traditionally, Hinduism in Indonesia had a pantheon of deities, and the tradition of belief continues in practice. Further, Hinduism in Indonesia granted freedom and flexibility to Hindus as to when, how and where to pray. However, officially, Indonesian government considers and advertises Indonesian Hinduism as a monotheistic religion with certain officially recognized beliefs that comply with its national ideology. Indonesian school textbooks describe Hinduism as having one supreme being, Hindus offering 3 daily mandatory prayers, and Hinduism as having certain common beliefs that in part parallel those of Islam. Scholars contest whether these Indonesian government-recognized and assigned beliefs reflect the traditional beliefs and practices of Hindus in Indonesia before Indonesia gained independence from Dutch colonial rule. Some of these officially recognized Hindu beliefs include a belief in one supreme being called Id Sang Hyang Widi Wasa Sang Hyang Tunggal, or Sang Hyang Asintia, God Almighty. In the Torajanese culture of central Sulawesi is known as Puang Matua in Aluk Tadolo belief, a belief that all of the gods are manifestations of the supreme being. This belief is the same as the belief of Smartism, which also holds that the different forms of God, Vishnu, Shiva, are different aspects of the same supreme being. Lord Shiva is also worshipped in other forms such as Batara Guru and Maharaja Dewa are closely identified with the sun in local forms of Hinduism, Kabatanan, and even in the genie law of Muslims. A belief in the Trimurti, consisting of Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, Ciwa, Shiva, the destroyer. A belief in all of the other Hindu gods and goddesses. The sacred texts found in Agama Hindu Dharma are the Vedas and Upanishads. They are the basis of Indian and Balinese Hinduism. Other sources of religious information include the Universal Hindu Puranas and the Itihasa. The epics Mahabharata and Ramayana became enduring traditions among Indonesian believers, expressed in shadow puppet and dance performances. As in India, Indonesian Hinduism recognizes 4 paths of spirituality, calling it Kata Marga. These are Bhakti Marga, Jnana Marga, Karma Marga, and Raja Marga. Bhakti Marga has the largest following in Bali. Similarly, like Hindus in India, Balinese Hindus believe that there are 4 proper goals of human life, calling it Gatur Purusartha, Dharma, Artha, Karma and Moksha. Hinduism in Bali. Balinese Hinduism is an amalgamation of Indian religions and indigenous animist customs that existed in Indonesian archipelago before the arrival of Islam and later Dutch colonialism. It integrates many of the core beliefs of Hinduism with arts and rituals of Balinese people. In contemporary times, Hinduism in Bali is officially referred by Indonesian Ministry of Religion as Agama Hindu Dharma, but traditionally the religion was called by many names such as Tirtha, Trimurti Hindus, Agama Tirtha, Siwa Buddha, and Siwa Buddha. The terms Titha and Trimurti emanate from Indian Hinduism, corresponding to Titha and Trimurti respectively. As in India, Hinduism in Bali grew with flexibility, featuring a diverse way of life. It includes many of the Indian spiritual ideas, cherishes legends and myths of Indian Puranas and Hindu epics, as well as expresses its traditions through unique set of festivals and customs associated with a myriad of hyangs, the local and ancestral spirits, as well as forms of animal sacrifice that are not common in India. Balinese Hindu temple. The Balinese temple is called Pura. These temples are designed on square Hindu temple plan, as an open-air worship place within enclosed walls, connected with series of intricately decorated gates to reach its compounds. Each of these temples has a more or less fixed membership. Every Balinese belongs to a temple by virtue of descent, residence, or affiliation. Some house temples are associated with the family house compound, others are associated with rice fields, and still others with key geographic sites. In rural highlands of Bali, Banua temples in each desa are common. The island of Bali has over 20,000 temples, or about one temple for every 100 to 200 people. Temples are dedicated to local spirits as well as to deities found in India, for example, Saraswati, Ganesha, Vishnu's Siw et Parvati, Arjuna, and others. The temple design similarly amalgamate architectural principles in Hindu temples of India and regional ideas. Each individual has a family deity, called Kuladewa, who resides in the temple called the family temple that the individual and his family patronize. Balinese Hindu follow a 210-day calendar, and each temple celebrates its anniversary once every 210 days. Unique rituals and festivals of Balinese Hindus that are not found in India include those related to death of a loved one followed by cremations, cockfights, tooth filings, Nyupi and Galungan. Each temple anniversary, as well as festivals and family events such as wedding, include flowers, offerings, towering bamboos with decoration at the end and a procession. These are celebrated by the community with prayers and feast. Most festivals have a temple as venue, and they are often occasions for prayers, celebration of arts and community. Some traditions, in contrast, involve animist rituals such as taboo rara, killing of an animal to appease Bhutakala. However, the animal sacrifices are conducted outside the premises of a temple. Balinese Hindu arts, dance, music, colorful ceremonial dresses and other arts are a notable feature of religious expression among Balinese Hindus. As in India, these expressions celebrate various mudra to express ideas, grace, decorum and culture. Dance drama is common. Various stories are expressed. For example, one involves a battle between the mythical characters Rangda the witch and Barong the protective spirit represented with a lion mask, in which performers fall into a trance. The good attempts to conquer evil. The dances express the idea that good and evil exists within each individual, and that conquering evil implies ejecting evil from oneself. The dance drama regularly ends undecided, neither side winning, because the primary purpose is to restore balance and recognize that the battle between Dharma and Adharma is within each person and a never-ending one. Barong, or Dharma, is a major symbolic and ritual paradigm found in various festivities, dances, arts and temples. Rituals of the life cycle are also important occasions for religious expression and artistic display. Ceremonies at puberty, marriage, and, most notably, cremation at death provide opportunities for Balinese to communicate their ideas about community, status, and the afterlife. Balinese Hindu society scholars dispute the degree and nature of social stratification in medieval and contemporary Balinese Hindu society. The social structure consisted of Katur Wangsa, Brahmana, Satriya or Deva, Vaisya, and Sudra. There is no historical or contemporary cultural record of untouchables in Balinese Hindu society. The Wangsa, termed castes by some accounts, classes by other accounts, were functional, not hierarchical nor segregated in Hindu society of Bali or Java. Further, there was social mobility. People could change their occupation and caste if they wished to. Among the interior highlands of Bali, the Desa have had no Wangsa. The social status and profession of a person has been mutable, and marriage is not endogamous. Historical inscriptions suggest Balinese Hindu kings and village chiefs have come from all sections of its society: priests, warriors, merchants and artisans. Javanese Hinduism. Both Java and Sumatra were subject to considerable cultural influence from the Indian subcontinent. The earliest evidences of Hindu influences in Java can be found in 4th century Tarumanagara inscriptions scattered around modern Jakarta and Bogor. In the 6th and 7th centuries, many maritime kingdoms arose in Sumatra and Java which controlled the waters in the Straits of Malacca and flourished with the increasing sea trade between China and India and beyond. During this time, scholars from India and China visited these kingdoms to translate literary and religious texts. For the 4th to the 15th century, Java had many Hindu kingdoms, such as Tarumanagara, Kalinga, Medang, Kediri, Sunda, Singhasari and Majapahit. This era is popularly known as the Javanese Classical Era, during which Hindu-Buddhist literature, art and architecture flourished and were incorporated into local culture under royal patronage. During this time, many Hindu temples were built, including 9th century Prambanan near Yogyakarta, which has been designated a World Heritage Site. Among these Hindu kingdoms, Majapahit Kingdom was the largest and the last significant Hindu kingdom in Indonesian history. Majapahit was based in East Java, from where it ruled a large part of what is now Indonesia. The remnants of the Majapahit kingdom shifted to Bali during the 16th century after a prolonged war by and territorial losses to Islamic sultanates. The heritage of Hinduism left a significant impact and imprint in Javanese art and culture. The Wayang puppet performance as well as Wayang Wong dance and other Javanese classical dances are derived from episodes of Hindu epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. Although the majority of Javanese now identify as Muslim, these art forms still survive. Hinduism has survived in varying degrees and forms on Java. In recent years, conversions to Hinduism have been on the rise, particularly in regions surrounding a major Hindu religious site, such as the Klaten region near the Prambanan temple. Certain ethnic groups, such as the Tengiris and Osing, are also associated with Hindu religious traditions. Hinduism elsewhere in the archipelago. Among the non-Balinese communities considered to be Hindu by the government are, for example, the Dayak adherents of the Kaharingan religion in Kalimantan Tengah, where government statistics counted Hindus as 15.8% of the population as of 1995. Many Manusla and Nualu people of Seram follow Norus, a syncretism of Hinduism with animist and Protestant elements. Similarly, the Tanah Toraja of Sulawesi have identified their animistic religion as Hindu. The Batak of Sumatra have identified their animist traditions with Hinduism. The Tamils of Sumatra and the Indians in Jakarta practice their own form of Hinduism which is similar to the Indian Indian Hinduism. The Indian celebrating Hindu holidays more commonly found in India, such as Deepawali and Thaipusam. The Boda sect of Sasak people on the island of Lombok are non-Muslim. The religion is a fusion of Hinduism and Buddhism with animism. It is considered Buddhist by the government. Demographics. The Hindu organization Javanese Hindu carries out periodic surveys through its close connections with Hindu communities throughout Indonesia. In 2012, its studies stated that there are 10,267,724 Hindus in Indonesia. The PHDI, along with some other religious minority groups, claimed that the government undercounts non-Muslims in census recording. The 2010 census recorded the number of Hindus at 4,012,116, some 80% of them residing in the Hindu heartland of Bali. Official census. According to the 2010 census, there were a total of 4,012,116 Hindus in Indonesia, compared to 3,527,758 Hindus in 2000 census. While the absolute number of Hindus increased, the relative percentage of Hindus in Indonesia decreased from 2000 to 2010 because of lower birth rates among Hindu population compared to Islamic population in Indonesia. The average number of births per Hindu woman varied between 1.8 and 2.0 among various Indonesian islands, while for Islamic population it varied between 2.1 and 3.2 per woman. Official census. According to the 2000 census, Hindus consisted 1.79% of the total Indonesian population. Bali had the highest concentration of Hindus, with 88.05% of its population professing Hinduism agama. The percentage of population of Hindus declined over 1990 census, and this is largely attributed to a lower birth rate and immigration of Muslims from Java into provinces with high Hindu populations. In central Kalimantan, there has been progressive settlement of Maduris from Madura. The details are given below.